Matt Walsh, last year, Veep won Best Comedy Series again. But what was it like going to the Emmys as a nominee? Because you were nominated last year for the first time.
I was. It's very. It creates a lot of stage fright. I was very nervous. Our category was first, and so we were rushing to get in our seats. And then when they actually start reading the names, me personally, I really truly was too nervous to win. So I was like, I hope I don't win. In that moment, I was like, I can't even. It makes you very nervous. It gives you a kind of stage fright you don't realize because you see all these cameras and everyone's watching, and it's like this final announcement of this competition that you've been in the middle of for 3 months or whatever. So it's that moment before is extremely stressful, but the journey up to it and the nomination were so much fun.
Did you, what did it mean to get nominated after sort of so many years on the show?
I think in a world like a television world where there's so many, there's 500 funny comedies, let's say, and to be given specific recognition, by your peers or people in the business in a sea of really funny shows is pretty extraordinary. It's kind of ridiculous because there's so many equally funny people out there. So it's a real honor, and it also, you get a lot of people reconnect with you that you've worked with over the years, and there's a lot of joy and support from your friends who you've worked with. So that's really neat.
Yeah, it's like you've got to, just on Veep alone, there are probably more actors than spaces in that category.
Yeah, that's a great example. For male supporting actor, there's Tim, Tony, Reed, Kevin Dunn, Gary Cole, Sam Richardson. Like, they're all amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you've then got to add all the other shows on top of that, and that's who you're competing against. Yeah,
it is. It's mind blowing. Yeah. Mm. Your boss was saying they should open up the category to 10.
Yeah, Tom's a big believer in having more nominees and bigger fields, and I think with where TV is at the moment, it sort of makes sense.
Yeah. Mm. Well, they do it at the Oscars for picture.
Yeah.
And that's it, probably, right? They have 10 best pictures.
Yeah, they just do it for picture, and all the other categories have 5 and 3 in some of them. I think there's 3 nominees in some of the categories. But
yeah, TV, there's so many candidates. Yeah. It would be really nice if they opened them up.
At the very least, at the Emmys, you can, if there's a tie, I think with you're 7th and you're within 1 percentage point, they'll include you in the category or something. Whereas
yes, that's right.
Whereas the Oscars, the way they count the ballots, it's impossible to have more than 5 in a lineup. So what was it like for Veep to win again? How was the win last year different to the win the year before?
Well, I think the win last year was it was a tip of the hat to the new regime. We had an all-new writing staff and a new showrunner, Dave Mandel. And so Armando and the British guys sort of stepped away from the show and went back to England to work on other projects. And so Dave and the new crew, there was a lot of new staff inherited this wonderful show, and they were extremely nervous to not ruin it, but also to keep it really good. And so it was a great relief, I felt, for all the writers, and especially Dave, that they got credit for the passing of the baton. I thought it was it was very personally satisfying for me.
And there was a shift this year in Veep to covering an ex-president. What have you enjoyed the most about the most recent season of Veep?
Well, I think at the heart of it, seeing Selena at the very bottom is really funny. Like, she's not even in politics. She can't even get an advance for a memoir. She can't even get, a job, basically. She can't get a Supreme Court justice nomination. She can't get money for her foundation. And all of those things that punish Selena make the show funnier. So I think that's really funny. And I also like that Selena's sort of diaspora are starting to come back together. Like, the way they structured the season, Amy's in Nevada and Tim's a congressman and, you know, Reed's on the morning show. And slowly but surely they find ways to bring the band back together. Kevin and Kent and Kevin Dunn are working for Jonah, but they found ways to sort of bring us back together. And that's what I really like.
And what do you think where's Mike this season?
Mike was sort of the first one to go. Everyone's terrible at their job, but Mike is the worst at his job. So once she lost her job, he didn't have any employment. And then he was instantly given 3 children. So he now is a father at home. His wife works, Wendy works. So he's completely in a world that he's not equipped for. And then fortunate, and he's really jonesing for some adult stimulation, and he likes the political game. And when Selena calls about his diary, he's ecstatic to have a job, and he's ecstatic to have adult stimulation. And also, I think Mike fancies himself a great writer. So I think he wants to prove himself with this memoir. I think he thinks this could be his great novel.
Yeah, we the most recent episode, he's pitching his great piece of writing for the news to get a column in the paper.
A comedy column like Dave Barry, yeah. A humor column. Yeah.
That piece of writing of Mike's, did you improv on that at all, or?
No, we tweaked it a little bit, but the writers gave me they had it written. It was in the script, but we tweaked it a little bit. We played with it a little bit. But that was fun to tell it. I always like when Mike thinks he's really funny and he's not. I really enjoy those scenes. So that was like milking a really bad joke for a really long time. I really enjoyed that.
Did you have did you think Mike's enjoying wearing probably less suits than we've ever seen him wear before on the show?
Yeah, Mike wears a lot of flannel. He took it to Qatar. He wore his flannels in Qatar. So he likes to he likes to wear different clothes. I think he probably owned 5 suits, so he's probably glad to not wear them anymore. Yeah.
And probably your biggest episode this season was when you were helping Selena write the memoir. You're up late with her. You go to cabin. Talk us through your sort of how you approached that episode.
That was a big Mike episode because Selena and Mike are sort of locked in this plateau of the book's not going well, and then suddenly she opens up her backstory, her history, and her psyche, and Mike is almost like a therapist helping her unpack what her true childhood was. And it's always fun. I think every character on the show wants to have good times with Selena, but it's also dangerous because as Mike's unpacking this stuff, he's challenging the veracity of her story and getting her to look at it realistically, and she's lashing out at him. And but it was really fun, and it was also sort of a fun little detective journey, like to talk to Uncle George, to go back to the office, to unpack all the facts. I think was really fun for Mike. So, and the sleepover feel of it, like hanging out late, I think probably reminds Mike of the early days when they were fledgling, congressmen trying to get attention. So I think he really loved it.
Yeah. And you also got quite the sunburn this season.
They really, they can pretty much write anything for Mike, and you almost believe it. Like the levels of sunburn. That was a lot of discussions with our makeup people, making sure it looked realistic and not too cheap. And then it was basically a wonderful visual for everyone to make fun of Mike in every scene. And it's very, it's based. I'm very fair skinned, so I'm sure the writers didn't have to think too hard on what would happen to Mike if he went to Qatar.
What's been your favorite on-set moment from this season?
I mean, it's pretty simple. I loved trashing the barn with Selena. I loved smashing all that glass and wood, and that was just so fun, like to walk into work and get to like break things and scream and tell jokes. It was really amazingly fun. I'm pretty sure we broke a few rental props as well, but it was really fun.
Was it like the Titanic, where they sort of go, okay, we've got this ship, and if we sink it, like, this is the last chance we've got at this. Are you like, were they like, okay, we've only got so many plates, we've only got so many things to smash in the apartment. You got to get this right, Matt.
There was a limited amount of like duplicates, yes. So there were things we weren't supposed to break, but inevitably we got carried away. But also we choreographed it. Like, we worked through to make sure Julia didn't hit me with the oar when she's swinging it. And there was also some comedy to be had about, almost hitting each other or breaking things that Selena wanted. She wanted to save her pencil cup. So I'm like trying to hit things close to that. So there was a lot of choreography, and also there was some crew around us wearing like goggles so they didn't get glass in their eyes. So there was safety precautions in there.
What was the thing they were most concerned about you breaking?
Well, I think her mug that she made for her daddy was, I don't know if we had an extra one of those. And then there was a couple things on, I believe, the desk that we weren't supposed to hit. And then the fan, there was like a chandelier that we weren't supposed to break, but I think Julia broke it anyways. So they ultimately don't get really upset. They'll just have to pay for it. But we try to not break things that we have to pay for.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
What is there? How is stuff going? Because I think like last year with the new team and new credit coming in, your process where you use improv and refine the script, elements of that carried over, but it did evolve to some degree. How's the process going in season 6 of constructing the episodes?
I think the process has evolved to a little more conversational contribution as opposed to like getting on our feet and improvising whole brand new scenes. Inevitably what happens is we'll do table read of a new script, and then there'll be a couple scenes that aren't working or that we want to put on their feet. And in those rehearsals where we put them on their feet, the writers sort of take notes and we sort of try to play with the script. And then the writers go back and make a new draft from that rehearsal. But as we go on, it's truly written. Like when we show up on set, it's 90 to 100% on the page. And we're constantly tweaking it or trying new jokes and when I say conversationally, like you're always welcome to like approach Dave or one of the writers and say, what if Mike said this, or maybe Mike could do this? And then we always meet at the beginning of every season to sort of talk about a possible arc for your character, or they tell you what you're thinking or what they're thinking, and then you give them ideas that might fit into that. So there's a lot of conversation as well.
Yeah, it's still a very collaborative process.
It is. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah. What's a contribution you made this season?
Apparently Dave Mandel told me, which I don't remember. Apparently I improvised the line when they're breaking things in Selena's barn. Mike says, he's so angry, he's like, pay me, bitch. And then later on when he's smashing things on the other side of the room, he says, I'm a grown man. Why do I still eat when I'm full? And apparently I improvised that. So that was good. And then I think I told Dave, when he told me about the diary, that was going to be Mike's way into helping with the memoir and that Selena would need him. I just suggested that in that book should also be every meal that Mike ever ate. So that's kind of one of the jokes with the memoirs, that you see what Mike ate.
Nice. What? And how? I mean, you still perform for the UCB, I imagine. How is that how is that helping you with Veep at the moment? But also, I guess, how is Veep helping you with your improv stuff?
I think improv really helped me with Veep in the early years of this show, because there was a lot of room for improv. We would get an improvised take, or we did a lot more rehearsing as we were discovering the characters. And then inevitably on the show, there are little moments where they just let it breathe, or they keep the camera on you. And I think that's where my improv skills, still get used. There was a scene where Anna Klumsky says to Roger Furlong, says, you should work for me. And I say to Anna, you don't really want to work for Furlong, do you? And she's like, I do. I think that was part of an improvised sort of take that ended up in the show. So we do have little moments where we get to improvise. How does Veep help me improvise? I don't know that it works backwards that way. Like I feel like Veep's written, and I've become a better like actor and sort of comedic actor as a result of the show and as a result of working with, you know, great people like Julia and everybody else on the show. So that's helped me become a better actor. So maybe I'm a slightly better actor when I improvise, maybe.
What do you think? We live in such an interesting time politically, and so many parallels are being drawn between like just all political shows and the current state of politics. Do you think Veep is the most reflective of the current political times?
Well, I can only speak for America, and we still talk to many people who work in DC, whether they're congressmen or assistants or judges, and they always say, of all the political shows, Veep is the most accurate. We've heard that for many seasons now, and it still holds true. Even in this insanity that we're, you know, the Trump insanity that we're in the middle of, people still feel like we're portraying most of what happens in DC pretty accurately.
I used to think that Veep was probably a little bit over the top in terms of like realism, but like that's what made the show great, so I liked it. But I feel like the Trump administration has made me feel like it's less like over the top. It's more like plausible, and I feel like you've like the thing the show mixes really well that I think sort of mirrors sort of the real life sort of administration is this mix of complete sort of selfishness and incompetence.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Like some of the stuff that happens in DC, you know, out of the Trump world, are probably ideas that were pitched in the writer's room a year ago, and people are like, no, that's not believable. That would never happen. So it is very strange and absurd times we're living in. And I obviously get compared to Sean Spicer, who's the press sec for the current administration, and he's terrible. Like the first hour of his job, my Twitter feed was filled up with hundreds of people saying this guy's worse than Mike McClintock, like on the first hour of his first day. Yeah. So it is crazy. I don't, it's disappointing as someone who lives here, but I don't know what, like, the question I think maybe you're asking is what will happen next season. We're coming back next season. And this year, fortunately, she's not president. So I don't know what's coming. I don't know what happens next year, but after a year of Trump politics, does that affect our show? I don't know.
Yeah, like I feel like Sean Spicer and Mike McClintock are two characters, for want of a better word, where you can see like thoughts clicking through their head as they're speaking.
Yeah. They're not that fast. They don't seem that quick. I agree.
And when they say something they shouldn't, you see both of them realize it almost in real time.
Yes. They are similar in that way. That's very true.
Has Sean Spicer made your job on Veep easier or harder?
Well, Mike's not a press secretary anymore. Yeah. The only thing that's harder or that's more challenging is usually in interviews, people want me to talk about Sean Spicer. Like I don't mind talking about it, but they also want me to give advice to him. And my only advice is always he should quit his job. Like I have no other advice for him. Yeah. But it is it's very strange. And like I've said before, Mike at the podium in the press room is actually competent. They've made great efforts to make sure that there is some believability that this guy still has a job. Whereas I think he's better at the podium than Spicer, for sure.
Yeah. I ran out of time to write a whole bunch of questions this time, Matt. So I went onto whitehouse.gov and I just got a few from one of Sean Spicer's press conferences to ask you.
Okay. So, yeah. Am I pretending I work in government, or are you just asking me in the Veep world to address these questions from that point of view?
Whatever you'd rather, Matt. I was thinking Veep world.
Thank you. I just want to be clear.
Receives intelligence briefings. Does she receive them literally or orally, and who's giving it to them?
Selena gets them both literally and orally, and usually her experienced advisors are in the room. Ben McCafferty, Kent Davidson, and various chiefs of the military. So she has all visual aids at her at her hands if she needs them to clarify any issues. So she is completely deluged with infinite amounts of media about very sensitive information.
Yeah, thank you very much. And the president invoked the possibility of the nuclear option on Supreme Court. What does that mean?
Well, I think you're parsing Selena's words. You're taking her out of context. I think that she was just posturing to people on the other side of the aisle who were saber rattling, and so she in turn was saber rattling. But I don't think there's any literal nuclear option or figurative nuclear option that's coming down the pike anytime soon.
There you go. That's good. This is a good job, Matt. You did well with those questions.
Oh, I just had to know the game. I just have to know the game.
You had to know the game. You had to know where you were heading with it. Yeah, that's good.
I got to know my point of view and my perspective.
Yeah, and the UCB show is also going to be in the Emmy ballot. It's now on the Emmy ballot. The Emmy ballot came out, so that's exciting. What's your favorite thing about that show?
Well, I love UCB has all these wonderfully talented people who in 2 or 3 years are going to be in television and in movies, and some of them will be stars. And so I like that we're giving youngsters that are in our community an opportunity to show their comedy chops and to get discovered. So we have 4 theaters, both coasts, and we cull together what we consider like 8 episodes of our best variety comedy stand-up sketch. And it's just really exciting to see the next generation of funny people.
Yeah, I feel like there was always, like, on Letterman and other shows like that, a great forum for up-and-coming stand-up comics to get exposure. And it is interesting to think of creating more forums for improv performers to get that similar sort of kind of exposure, and they're not necessarily big names yet.
Yeah, and it's also, there's funny comedy shows 7 nights a week at UCB. So basically all we had to do is just load in some cameras and capture it. So it was stuff we were doing already anyway. So it was a really good fit for our theater.
Yeah, I spoke with who did I speak with last week? Robin Paul about their Drive Share show, and that like was sort of that was a cool way. Yeah, that was a cool way of getting a lot of sort of up and coming like guys from the UCB doing stuff and getting them out there too.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's a great one.
What do you think? So what do you think Veep is doing? Like in Veep, I like see more and more sort of UCB guys sort of popping up in there every now and then too. Like, what do you think Veep and other shows on TV can play and getting more exposure for sort of up and coming improvers?
I know on Veep, they find being an improviser a special skill that they want. Like, they want a good actor. Like, they want good actors because the script is written well, but they also want somebody who can see the potential that might not be on the page. And I think improvisers are good with adding extra laughs or perhaps extra words that make it funnier. And so they get excited when they find someone who's a good actor but also has this improv background. So I know on Veep, they're always like, they pick my brain, like who's, you know, if there's like a 50-year-old woman, they'll ask me, is there anybody or running around the theater that you can think of? Or if there's a 25-year-old, you know, ethnic person, like they use me a little bit for casting, and I'm always excited to help, you know, talk to our artistic directors and get these people seen. But I think our show does value improv chops a lot. They do. Like, we have Mary Holland on this year, who was amazing. She plays Jonah's girlfriend. Seth Morris came back. He's amazing. He plays Congressman Yeager, who's kind of a pervert. So there's a lot of people running around. Jessica Chaffin plays a congressman. So there's a lot of people I was really happy to see this year. Yeah.
And what's been your favorite thing about Veep this season?
It's been my favorite. You know, I feel like the show has been aggressively darker this year, which I kind of like. I feel like we're pushing the boundaries a little bit. And like when she went to Qatar and sort of bailed on women's rights completely just so she could get a Nobel Peace Prize. Like, I remember reading that script in the room and thinking, jeepers, that's really heavy and dark. But then Selena or Julia shot it, and they had the teleprompter, and you see her ignoring it. And the thing she was saying, it was just sort of complicated and really heavy and dark, but also wonderful because it felt like a nice, we were pushing an edge there, and I really like when the show does that.
Yeah, no, it's cool. What, Matt? We usually check in with your dogs. See how your dog's going. How are they going at the moment?
Roger's good. I could go get him, but you'd have a minute of dead air time. I don't want to do that to you.
I can edit out the minute of dead air time, Matt.
Let me go get him. I like showing you Roger.
Yeah.
It makes me happy.
Yeah. Oh, here we go.
Roger's getting older. I just wanted you to see him. He's about 14 or 15 now, so you might not see him next year.
Oh, no. Oh, well, that's... Yeah, so good. It was good we got him in this year. Matt, all the best of luck for Veep.
Thank you.
All the best of luck for the Emmys. They're going to be exciting again. I'm sure Veep will get nominated. I'm sure Julia will get nominated. I'm sure some of you supporting guys will get nominated. It's just hard to know which ones.
I know. We're all competing against each other. When does the voting start? Is it open?
I think it started Monday.
Monday. Okay.
Yeah. So ballots came out on Monday. I think they're open for about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to do my homework.
Yes, and thanks for chatting again, Matt. You were the first person in my 5 Timers Club.
Really?
Yeah, you're the first person I've interviewed 5 times.
We're doing a longitudinal study on Roger's health.
Yes.
We're gonna check back in with Roger every year.
Yeah, I remember the year you couldn't find him, and I was worried. Oh no, I haven't lost. Yeah.
No, that's fun. No, I look forward to it, Matt. Every year I do.
Oh, thanks so much, Matt, and I do as well.
All right, take care, brother.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.